Matt, we're in a good mood today, I'll tell you, because both of our teams are leading in the World Series.
East Coast, West Coast, beast of the East, best of the West. It's it's beautiful. And also, by the way, I don't know, for those of you who want a little bit of a statistic to start off the show, the all-time record between the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers, regular season and postseason, is 50-50.
Oh,
Every
yeah,
every single game has been tightly contested. Every single series has been tight. Every single game has been 50-50. That's the win percentage.
well, you have to talk about um, both players with 50-50 home runs. We'll get to that in a minute. But first off, the Dodgers, however, on Sunday night, they closed out another New York team. That's your rival from Queens, the New York Mets. They beat them in six. I mean, the Dod. We obviously knew the Dodgers were going to outplay and outscore the New York Mets. The New York Mets were really the New York Mets just did not have any answers on how to beat the Dodgers. Just because, look, their starting rotation was up and down, and then you talk about their bullpen being so bad. But you know what? The New York Mets had a great. This was a season. This was a great Cinderella run they had. Started 0-5, going from that 22-30, the grimace. Oh my God! But you know what? The New York Mets should be proud of the season they've had.
And I think that season, despite all the turmoil and all the struggle and the frustration that they had, they were able to overcome that, make the playoffs, have a couple of amazing games against fellow rivals. But you mentioned the Dodgers beating and outclassing the Mets in that series. That series in the NLCS was an exchange of blowouts. Like it would be 10-2, 7-3, 9-0, 8-0, 10-5 was the final for game 6. And then the Mets had their haymakers too, but they didn't have as big of a punch offensively as the Dodgers did. And I think the Mets, if you're looking long term next season, I think Pete Alonso comes back. I think that Luis Angel Acuna is going to get more playing time. I think that there's going to be a lot of optimism for this Mets team going forward, but they just didn't have it in this series.
No, they didn't. There was a lot of speculation about it. Pete Alonso was going to play this last game as a Met. But from what I see, I don't think he has, because although there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be chasing Pete Alonso this summer, I know Steve Cohen and David Stearns are going to make sure Pete Alonso remains a Met for life.
And that has been their mission ever since Pete Alonso hit that 3-run home run against the Milwaukee Brewers. Which, by the way, Brewer fans, you can breathe a sigh of relief because your streak is over of having teams beat you in the postseason, make it to the World Series. So that streak is over. But the Mets re-signing Pete Alonso, it's kind of a given at this point, you would think, because this is the guy who was more clutch and more productive in the postseason than any other player on the Mets, and he's just the franchise guy. Fans love him. He loves the city. He got the polar bear moniker from being with the Mets, and I don't think you want to let a guy like that go. I don't think you should.
Yeah, if you look at the Mets next year and what their depth would be, obviously, Francisco Alvarez will be behind the plate. Francisco Alvarez is kind of 50-50 defensively. I think he's going to work on his catching mechanics. I know he is just 22, and I know he's a player that I think New York Mets will love.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really bat particularly well in the postseason, but you know what? He was just a kid. I mean, there were a lot of rookies in across both New York teams that are making their postseason debuts in their rookie season. That's rare to see. But Francisco Alvarez, like you said, the catching mechanics could have been better in the playoffs. His hitting could have definitely been better in the playoffs. I think he went 5 for 34 in the postseason, which is completely unacceptable. Um, but again, he's young. He'll grow. He'll get better. But I think this is, if anything, a big building block for all the youngsters on the New York Mets.
Obviously, first base will be Pete Alonso. Then second base will be Jeff McNeil. Francisco Lindor will be at short. I mean, what a season he had. He had a slow start, but him hitting in the leadoff spot really rejuvenated the New York Mets offense. Third base is going to be Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos He came in midseason, did very well, but I think next year he's going to be in consideration for National League Rookie of the Year. Brett Beatty fell down to earth, but I feel like that Brett Beatty will probably be the primary DH so that you have an outfield of Nemo, Angel Acuna, and Marte.
Yeah, I think the Mets, their biggest thing is they need their entire lineup from day one to produce throughout the entire regular season. And we've had them, and we've seen the Mets in the postseason, whether it was against the Phillies, whether it was against the Brewers, or even against the Dodgers. We have seen the Mets make a bunch of batting lineup rotations. They've made a bunch of substitutions in many positions. I mean, it got to the point where Tyrone Taylor was in on a postseason roster. It got to the point where Harrison Bader had a couple of at-bats in the playoffs. So if the Mets stay healthy, and that's a big if because health and durability is the biggest availability in all of sports. If the Mets can stay healthy and be consistent throughout and no one gets hurt, then I think the Mets are going to be forced to reckon with for years to come. But I think Atlanta's going to come back to first place, and I think the Phillies are going to take a step back after losing early in the postseason. So I think if you're the Mets, you have an opportunity next year.
No, I think second and third place next year in the NL East is between the Mets and the Phillies, though.
Yeah.
And then you also talk about the pitching. I mean, Kodai Senga played hurt. He was not himself this year. I think he's the ace of that staff when he's right.
I mean, who would have thought that the best pitcher throughout the later stages of the season was Sean Manaea? Who would have thought that? I mean, Sean Manaea had a couple great postseason games. Kodai Senga did not play well at all down the stretch. Edwin Diaz was iffy. That bullpen for the Mets, oh my God. I texted you before Game 6. I said that Mets bullpen is atrocious, and they proved it. In Game 5, they won 12-6, but it was a 10-2 lead at one point, and the Mets almost blew it. They made it interesting with that bullpen. So they got a lot of youngsters on that rotation. They got a lot of youngsters in that bullpen that need to develop, and I think that with a year of experience under their belt, I think that maybe things will get better, but God, things were just hard to watch at times.
Oh, absolutely. But you got to give credit to Carlos Mendoza, who used to be a New York Yankee coach under Aaron Boone. He did a great job. I'll tell you, he should be in consideration for NL Manager of the Year. But I feel like that the things he did for the New York Mets, he really hung in there with them.
He did. You know, you got to give Carlos Mendoza some love. I mean, we had several rookie managers make the playoffs this year, which I thought was amazing. We'll get into the other rookie manager on the American League side who had a phenomenal postseason run. But Carlos Mendoza did everything he could to keep this team afloat. He made a lot of the right moves when he needed to. Like I said, the Phillies executed that series perfectly. But the Dodgers, it was just too much of a mountain to climb. But like I said, I think he's bright. I think he's very intelligent. I think he's very wise when it comes to his pitching moves. And I think that he really has a chance to be a skipper for the manager for the Mets for a long time.
Where do they go from here? Because now we know that they're going to keep Pete Alonso. Do you think the Mets also need to sign a front end star pitcher, and then they also need to strengthen their bullpen to give the ball to Edwin Diaz in the ninth?
Well, they definitely need to strengthen their bullpen. That's for sure. I'm not 100% sure what closers are going to be out there by the time we get to the winter, but I am going to say that the Mets should have priority number one be the bullpen. I mean, that's the one thing that helps teams win ball games in the postseason. And the Mets, if it weren't for a lackadaisical bullpen, they would have been a machine to go against in the postseason. And I think as far as their rotation goes, I think Sean Manaea is your ace. I think Kodai Senga is going to get better next season. But that rotation as a whole was just underwhelming for the most part.
And Luis Severino had a good year. I feel like David Stearns would want to keep him because I was told that David Stearns really knows how to throw pitchers.
He does. He really does. And I think with Luis Severino, you know, he has had his fair share of good moments. But at the same time, you saw him in Game 3 against the NLCS where he was shell-shocked. Like I said, the Mets need to have a good mentality. They have a good mixture of veteran and young players. but they really know now that they have something going for them, and I think that next year the things are going to get a lot better.
Well, now we got to talk about how the Yankees got there. Like, first off, the New York Yankees, they beat the Royals in 4 games of the ALDS, and then they beat the Cleveland Guardians in 4 games. They had an easy road to get here, but fans are just saying that the Yankees had it the easy way.
I wouldn't necessarily say that's true. Here's why. Because you have to watch every single game of that Guardians series in the ALCS. And every single time the Yankees looked like they were going to pull away, the Guardians would respond back with a haymaker. They would have a 2-run inning, a 3-run inning to tie or make it close. They would get to Clay Holmes. They would get to Luke Weaver. So the Royals, the problem with the Royals was they chased a lot of pitches out of the zone. The Guardians had better plate discipline, and they really gave the Yankees a run for their money in every single at bat. And Game 3 was a crushing loss when they lost Game 3 to John Henry Noel and also Lane
Big
Thomas.
Christmas.
Big Christmas. Brian Anderson, God bless you for that call. But the Guardians really put up a fight. And it wasn't easy. For a 5-game series that was the best of 7, it was not easy whatsoever. And I know I said we were going to talk about the Guardians for a little bit. The Yankees had their moments. Giancarlo Stanton went off. He was ALCS MVP. And Juan Soto hit that 3-run home run in Game 5 to send the Yanks into the World Series. So it was a really, really amazing execution by your big bats in the lineup. But for the Guardians' sake, I think that they're going to be an amazing team for years to come. I mean, this is a team that does not have a player over the age of 27. And Stephen Vogt is a rookie manager, and they made it all the way to the ALCS and won 92 games.
Well, you got to give Stephen Vogt credit because, he really made he made an impact right away with the Guardians. And then you talk about players like Jose Ramirez, Nikizi Noel. They didn't have a rotation except for Tanner Bybee. Emmanuel Clase he was not good in the playoffs.
No, he was not. There were a lot of games that Emmanuel Clase blew that could have been saves. I feel like late in games his command was off. And I think the Guardians bailed out in the ALDS against the Tigers. They really bailed out there. But against the Yankees, you can't make mistakes like that against guys like Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. It's been proven that those guys are your big bats in the lineup, and they made Clase pay. And I think that Clase is considered the best closer in baseball. But when you perform like that in the postseason, there's going to be some conversation about what you can and can't do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like the Guardians in the future, they shouldn't use him for a 6-out save.
No, and one thing I also want to mention, you mentioned 6-out saves. Luke Weaver at one point got really tired in that Guardian series. He was fatigued. He was used for a lot of 4-out, 5-out situations. And I feel like I said, the fatigue got to him late in the Guardian series. So when you're using your closer the way that Aaron Boone has used Luke Weaver, and I'm not saying Aaron Boone did a bad job, but you got to keep track of how long an outing is for your relievers, how many pitches they throw, pitch counts, everything. When an at-bat goes a long time, you can't say, okay, we're going to give them this amount of innings. Sometimes your game plan is going to blow up right in your face. But for the case of Aaron Boone, he has to adapt on the fly when things don't go right with his bullpen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's like the most criticized manager like Dave Roberts is. But going back to the Dodgers real quick and how they got here, we talked about them beating the Mets in 6. They beat the Padres in 5. I mean, the Padres, I felt like the Padres series was a challenge for us, but we found a way to beat them.
And if it weren't for Game 4, the Dodgers probably wouldn't even be in this position right now. They were lucky to get out of Game 5 with a 2-0 win. But I feel like in the Padres series, the Padres had the hot hand after Game 3, and then they just got blown out in Petco Park in Game 4, and that was just the end of it. And then in Game 5, they stood no chance. The Dodgers, my thing with the Dodgers, and you're probably going to agree with me on this, that rotation is a bit banged up. I mean, Yamamoto was
I
decent
know.
at times. Yamamoto was
I know it's
decent.
banged up, but I feel like Dave Roberts has done a really good job with being very creative with our pitching, and I think I think our offense has done a great job at times, and yeah.
Yeah, like at times the Dodgers looked fantastic. At times they looked human. Remember, this is a team that had the best record in baseball in the regular season. But back to the pitching for a second. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who was the highly coveted free agent out of Japan, he had his moments. He had some games where he looked good and he went 5 innings, and that's really all you need from him, because it's pretty clear, much like Kodai Senga, that Yamamoto had a hard time pitching in the playoffs in the first two series. Walker Buehler has gotten blown up at times, but has hung his own. Jack Flaherty, for the most part, with the exception of Game 5 against the Mets, looked solid. But like I said, in the playoffs, it all comes down to the bullpen. So in the postseason situation, if your starters can get 5 or 6 innings of work, you've done your job.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're gonna have to talk about the World Series and then the World Series, and then the NLCS MVP is Tommy Edman. I mean, Tommy Edman. Where would this Dodgers team be without Tommy Edman?
Well, Tommy Edman was incredible in the NLCS. I think he went 7 for 27 in the first 27 bats. I think he had like a 300 batting average in the NLCS as a whole. He was very timely hitting when he needed to be. Shohei Ohtani, as much as we praised the guy, struggled a little bit when it came to getting runners on base and hitting without runners on base. I feel like that was his biggest struggle, hitting without any runners on. So he needs to get better at that, because that could be a big momentum shift. I think that Teoscar Hernandez has put together some solid at bats. I don't think he's put together any game-changing at bats, but he's been solid. Mookie Betts is a machine in the playoffs. I think the Yankees are going to have a hard time with him. And then, I think that there are a couple players on the Dodgers who could have performed better. But you know what? When Tommy Edman steps up, that's all you need.
Oh, yeah. I mean, offense, you really need pretty good offense there, and then and that. So now we talk about because Game 1 of the World Series is Friday at Dodger Stadium. I mean, we have our Game 1 starter confirmed for the Yankees, and that would be Garrett Cole. 1-0 this postseason with a 3.31 ERA, and the Dodgers haven't started who would start. Probably going to be Yoshinobu Yamamoto, but I'm thinking they're going to go that route just to get off to a good start. But Garrett Cole, he's had his ups and downs this postseason, but I feel like he's yet to go at least 7 or 8 innings in a postseason game, which I really think he should go that far.
Well, when it comes to Garrett Cole, it's boom or bust with him. I mean, he's had innings this postseason where he looked control of his command. He's had innings this postseason where he looks out of sorts. He's had games like the Game 4 against Kansas City. He went 7 innings and threw 87 pitches, and his command looked sharp and fantastic. And then there's games against the Guardians where he struggled at times and couldn't really showcase his true talent. I think that in this case, I think if you're Garrett Cole, you need to set the tone. This is a power hitting Dodgers lineup. Facing Ohtani first off is not going to be easy. I don't have Ohtani's numbers against the Yankees in his career, and I don't have his career numbers against Garrett Cole. We'll probably find that somewhere down the line. But that's going to be the biggest leap to climb, the biggest hill to climb against the Dodgers lineup for Garrett Cole. Shohei Ohtani. And
well, I mean, I feel that the Dodgers, if they want to steal a game where the Yankees start Garrett Cole, they got to get to him really early. Like, you got to give him traffic, which the Dodgers would do, because knowing that he has to face Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman in the bottom of the first inning when he's done. But I feel like that other than Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon, I feel like the Yankees just don't have other reliable starters and relievers aside from those two.
Well, I agree with you about Cole and Rodon. Schmidt is boom or bust. He'll have a good game where he'll get a lot of ground ball outs. And then Luis Gil, I've said this time and time again to friends of mine, Luis Gil's biggest problem is he walks way too many batters. And against the Dodgers lineup that takes advantage of bad pitching, that's a detriment. So I think Luis Gil would be in for a long one if he's the game 4 starter or game 3 starter. So that's why I'm a little iffy with him. And then as far as the relievers go for the Yankees, I like Tim Hill. Tim Hill's put together a couple of really nice outings that have required 4 or 5 outs. Tommy Kahnle is the best reliever on the team right now.
Former Dodger, I'll tell you.
Former Dodger. So there's an advantage right there for Tommy Kahnle. He knows this Dodgers lineup in and out. So I think that Kahnle has an advantage against this lineup. I think Tim Hill's had some solid outings. I think Clay Holmes has had his massive struggles and brain farts. And then Luke Weaver is human. So I think if you're the Yankee bullpen, this is a challenge that you have to face. If you're Luke Weaver, if you want to prove that you're the legitimate closer and that you're the real deal closer in New York, you need to find a way to power against guys like Ohtani, power against guys like Mookie Betts. And then I think if you're the Dodgers, they've had a bullpen game in a couple instances this postseason because, as mentioned before, their rotation's not 100%. I'm agreeing with you. They're going to go Yamamoto game 1. Game 2, you're probably going to go Walker Buehler, I believe. And then game 3, what? You're thinking Jock Flaherty?
No, I'm thinking game 2 would be Jack Flaherty. And then I think game 3 would be Walker Buehler. Because I feel like the Dodgers want to line up Walker Buehler for a potential game 7.
That's a good point. And Walker Buehler has had good big time games in the past. So I think I understand the logic there. So because you're thinking like if it's Yamamoto 1, Flaherty 2, then Buehler 3, you're thinking bullpen game 4, and then it's back to Yamamoto again.
Oh yeah, on long rest, but yeah, it'd be on long rest for Yamamoto. So, I mean, I feel like because Yamamoto was used once during the NLCS, so I feel like Dave Roberts is going to be comfortable using him twice.
So that's probably going to be the outlook. I don't know why the Dodgers haven't confirmed that yet, but it looks like it's going to be Yamamoto. I texted you, by the way, before we went. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was also looking at if the Yankees are going to face 10 starters for the Dodgers, and it looks like they're not. So basically, Austin Wells is going to get the majority of the playing time. I mean, Austin Wells should be starting regardless of who starts.
I mean, the problem with Austin Wells this postseason, you could probably agree with me on this, is he hasn't been hitting the ball as well as he probably should. This is a guy who was batting 250, 260 in the regular season, but in the postseason, he's batting 125. It's not good at all. And I think that if you're the Yankees, you need someone to step up besides Judge, besides Stanton, besides Soto. And I think I can think of a couple other guys who could do well. I've seen Gleyber Torres have a good postseason. I think Anthony Volpe has put together some good at-bats. Alex Verdugo could be a massive key in this series because he's a former Dodger, and he knows the Dodgers very well. So Verdugo needs to pull his weight. Jazz Chisholm needs to wake up and not steal bases like he's in kindergarten. There's a lot of people that I think could step up for the Yankees. I'm curious to see, besides your first 3 batters, who could step up in this series for the Dodgers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you talk about like Will Smith. He had a quiet CS. Confident that he can get his hitting back together. He's done a great job behind the plate this year. And then for the Yankees, Anthony Rizzo just came back. He probably will be playing every day.
That's true.
And then Jason Dominguez is on the roster, so he's probably not going to – he's probably just learning the system before he gets integrated into a full-time role.
Yeah, I think the thing what that Aaron Boone's trying to do, they're probably going to use Dominguez as a utility player or someone that could pinch hit or pinch run for slower runners. So in a big-time situation, if Stanton hits a single down the first base line and you need someone to pinch run in a big spot, you'd probably put Dominguez there for Stanton. And I think that you could also probably substitute Dominguez in the left field if Verdugo is not 100%. So that's the thing that Dominguez could be used for. And then I think for the Dodgers, I'm curious to see. I think Max Muncy has a good shot to step up this postseason as well.
Yeah, because they've been sitting Freddie Freeman out because of that ankle injury he sustained towards the end of last year. And, I think that's not really distracted the Dodgers at all.
No, I mean they benched him. They sat him for a game, and it didn't really affect the Dodgers in the NLCS. So the bottom line is, this is a friendly war. By the way, this is a friendly war. My friend Loro right there said Dodgers in 7. I say Yankees in 7. This is going to go 7 games. We're confident about that, but we're split on who's winning. Obviously,
yeah, we are split because I said Dodgers in 7. Because the reason why I say that is because I feel like that the Yankees at that point will have a small lead in the later innings, where I think the Dodgers can take advantage of that bad Yankee bullpen. Like, say if Clay Holmes is used, and then you go to Ohtani, you go to Mookie Betts, you go to Freeman, you go to Will Smith, you go to Edmund. They're going to take advantage of Clay Holmes.
And that's the scary part about Clay Holmes coming into the bullpen. But you know what? The Yankees know that Clay Holmes is one of their better relievers, but Clay Holmes needs to step up this postseason. I think the Yankees are going to win this series, in large part because they are a more disciplined team than many people expect them to be. The stats don't tell you that, but they put together good at-bats. They haven't chased a lot of pitches outside. The rotation hangs in there. They're a gritty team. They've been gritty all postseason long. And against the Dodgers team that can either, 1, blow you out, or 2, you blow them out. This is the series that the Yankees are going to be in for a fight of their lives, but they've been in tough situations like this all postseason long. Also, I sent you a stat before I conclude my point. I sent you a stat of what Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton have done to the Dodgers in the past. And let's just say Dodger pitchers have gotten creamed by those two men.
Well, Giancarlo Stanton at Dodger Stadium, he's hit .309, 10 home runs, 26 RBIs, 9 doubles, 7.23 slugging percentage. But with the bullpen that the Dodgers have, I feel like that Roderick, Trinan, Evan Phillips, Michael Kopech, if you put those pitchers on Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, that's most likely going to be a strikeout for sure.
Well, one thing that I will say, but Stan has done a good job with this ever since the postseason began. He doesn't chase a lot of pitches that are down on the zone. He hasn't been chasing ever since the postseason began. So he's been seeing the ball well, and he's been hitting the ball well. He's crushing home runs. So I think the main thing with Giancarlo Stanton is to not lose sight of the baseball when a pitch is thrown at you. And if you're Yamamoto in game 1, you got to make sure that you keep the ball. And you might have to pitch around Giancarlo Stanton, because I've seen Giancarlo Stanton take opposing pitchers deep, starters, relievers, and he bombs them out of the park. That's the problem with Stanton. So
Giancarlo Stanton he's the record holder of the longest home run at Dodger Stadium when he was a Miami Marlin.
And that's I think the thing that Giancarlo Stanton has to his advantage. He knows Dodgers ballpark probably better than anyone, not just because of that home run that he hit, but because him and Aaron Judge are California natives.
Oh, yeah, because Judge has a 389 average against the Dodgers lifetime, and then the Giants are the only team he has better career OPS again.
So, like I said, I know I'm going to let you speak up a little bit about the Dodgers while I make my points. The Yankees, if you're Aaron Judge, this is your time to shine, because he's proven that he could dominate the Dodgers in the past. He's proven that time and time again. So he's done it in the regular season. He's never seen them in the postseason before. But if you're Aaron Judge, you're going to be a 2-time AL MVP. This is your moment to make yourself a Yankee legend. And if you miss that opportunity, there are going to be questions surrounding you.
Yeah, Aaron Judge is already the captain of the Yankees. And, I think that Aaron Judge, the season he's had was great. He finally broke through with his first career postseason home run in the NLCS, ALCS.
Yep.
And then you talk about Stanton having a tremendous ALCS with one of those bombs he hit in the 5th inning.
Oh, my God. He's just been absolutely insane. There have been playoff Stanton T-shirts that are being sold all across the tri-state area. Playoff Stanton is for real. But I want to ask you a question. I'm going to put you on top. We're going to switch roles for a second. So, what makes the Dodgers a threat to the Yankees, Loro?
I think it's their bats, and I also think it's our bullpen. Just because the Dodger bullpen has been so great this postseason, and the Dodger bullpen can shorten the game. They really get the top of Evan Phillips. When we get Brusdar Graterol back, I think he's going to be a threat to the Yankees' top of the lineup. Vastia, Banda, those two lefties can go on either Soto or Austin Wells or anything like that. You also have to throw in the fact that that the New York Yankees are an offense to me that is either they are going to wow you or they're going to disappoint you.
They haven't scored over 8 runs this postseason. So 8 is the magic number. The Dodgers have scored 8 runs more than 3 or 4 times this postseason. So the Dodgers are definitely more prolific offense. I can agree with that. But if you're the Yankee rotation and the Yankee bullpen, you have to hold the Dodgers to a certain number. I think it's going to come down to this. If you're the Yankees, game 1, you need to set the tone because Garrett Cole's going to be on the mound, your best starter. And then you're going to have Stanton and Judge coming at you if you're Yamamoto.
Lineup's going to look like. I'm assuming that Gleyber Torres is going to lead things off. Then Juan Soto will hit second, and then Aaron Judge will hit third. And then cleanup could be Rizzo or Wells or Giancarlo Stanton.
I think at this point you go with the hot hand. I think you put Stanton back in the cleanup spot where he was before. And I think Austin Wells is probably going to be your 9 batter because he hasn't batted well this postseason.
Then you also put in Jose Trevino too, and Jose Trevino is really good defensively as well.
Well, my thing with Trevino, and this is why Austin Wells is the everyday catcher in these playoffs, it's because Jose Trevino has a spaghetti arm. What do I mean by that? If Mookie Betts tries to steal second, Jose Trevino's not going to reach second base with his arm. Austin Wells can. So that's why you have Austin Wells as your everyday catcher in these playoffs. And I feel like that's why they use him every day. His bat needs to get better, though, because Austin Wells has not hit at all this postseason. And if you're going to be going up against the Dodger bullpen that is tough to get hits against, you need to step up your game. And I think this is a big time for Austin Wells. This is a big series for Aaron Judge. This is a big series for all of them. But I think for Aaron Judge, this is more important because this is your home state. This is against your rivals. This is against your home team's rival because Aaron Judge was a Giants fan growing up. And you have the best hitter in the playoffs so far this playoffs in Giancarlo Stanton. They've dealt with a lot of adversity. And I think that to close my point before I give you the floor for another minute about the Dodgers, the tough teams and the playoff championship teams, they grind and they grind and they grind, but they find ways to win. Now, before we actually conclude this whole baseball thing, because me and Loro are going to friendly war right now. Loro, I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Why do the Dodgers win the series and who is MVP?
Oh, I think the Dodgers win the World Series because I think our offense is going to find a way to get to the Yankee bullpen. I also think my World Series MVP is Shohei Ohtani because I feel like he's going to hit really big, majestic home runs at Dodger Stadium. And I also think when the series shifts to Yankee Stadium, Shohei Ohtani's going to hit a majestic home run into the second or third deck at Yankee Stadium in right field. If you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Left-handed hitters can hit home runs up there.
Yeah, the short porch, that's right.
That short porch that I'm talking about. And I think Ohtani's home run's going to go into the third deck.
He's done that to the Yankees in the past. He's done it before.
And then I could also see the Grouch returning to New York.
Okay, I like it.
And then I also think Freddie Freeman will find footing again. I mean, he can hit a home run into the bleacher creatures.
Like I said, the Dodgers have power, but they need to display that power early and often.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely they do. And then my MVP of the World Series is Shohei Ohtani, just because I think he's going to have a big series. He's going to drive in a lot of runs. And I think that Shohei Ohtani is going to add to an MVP, a World Series MVP showcase trophy to his collection.
Well, I'm going to wrap up my Yankee stuff really quick. One thing that I will say that the Yankees did not have when they faced the Dodgers in June was that Juan Soto did not play in that series. Yankees would go on to lose 2 of 3 to the Dodgers. If Soto was playing in that series, things would have been a little bit different. But Soto has had the biggest magnifying glass on him more than any other player, because people are wondering, is Soto going to stay in New York Yankee? Is Soto going to go to the Mets?
And to answer your question, I think he does stay in pinstripes.
I agree with you. But while you have an amazing first season with the Yankees, and while every eye is on you, you need to prove why you are the real deal. Soto's been a World Series champion before. He's faced the Dodgers before in the playoffs when he was a 19-year-old kid. And you know what? He's grown. He's got the maturity of a 40-year-old and a 25-year-old mentality. And I think if you're the Yankees, you finish what you started. You bring back home number 28, and then you complement the Liberty's championship with your own.
Well, we both have our own opinions on that, and I think that either way, win or lose for both teams, we're going to come away happy that we did a great series.
Yes. Now, before we actually end this segment, Loro, virtual handshake.
Yeah.
All right.
So now on to football here. So we'll start with talking about the Patriots game in London. I tell you, it was a much better performance for Drake May. I'll tell you. I mean, he's gotten better, but you know what? I just think that I just felt like Jacksonville really needed that win badly.
Oh, yeah. Jacksonville needed that win badly. If they did not win that game in London, then Doug Peterson would have faced more questions about job security, which he obviously did not want to go through. Tank Bigsby had a big performance in London. He looked incredible, ran for 2 touchdowns. The passing game led by Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr., I think, was really, really good. I like the way New England utilizes the tight end position with Hunter Henry. I think he's been really good ever since Drake May became the starter. But there's still stuff to clean up in New England, and you can clearly tell that they're still not entirely where they need to be.
I saw on Facebook that the way that the coaching staff is handling the quarterback situation, I'm hearing that Gerard Mayo could get fired, and I'm like, that is probably not going to happen. It's not Urban Meyer bad or Nathaniel Hackett bad.
Now, I think the thing with Gerard Mayo is that he's proven that he could lead a team in an effective manner. That's something that Urban Meyer didn't do when he was in Jacksonville. So I think you got to give Gerard Mayo at least another 2 years to really get this team on the right track. But I think first year, he's doing everything he can.
Well, to your team, the New York Giants were only held to 3 points to the division rival Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley had home. He had his, welcome home game against his former team. And this might have jump-started the Philadelphia Eagles season with this win.
Painful. Absolutely painful. 17 carries, 176 yards, and a touchdown. Almost 200 yards from scrimmage. Giants looked awful. Daniel Jones played bad and got benched. And 28-3 at home. Unacceptable.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, and then Drew Lock came in, and then I felt like Giants fans were like, we want the veto.
And you know what? I bet that's probably going to happen at some point. But I don't like the fact that Brian Dable, when benching Daniel Jones, goes to the media and says, you know what? Daniel Jones is going to remain our starter no matter what. Like, have you seen how the fans are reacting to Daniel Jones? Have you seen the play on the field? Have you seen any improvement at all? No. So I'm left flabbergasted by Brian Dable basically saying, you know what, this is our guy for right now. When fans are literally plowing on you, they're clobbering you, basically saying we want to change the QB. It's a mess. It's a total mess in New York right now.
Big Blue is a mess right now. I mean, look, this roster is terrible right now.
It's
with
horrible.
the exception for Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, but that's the lone bright spot of the team. The offense bad, the defense inconsistent, and other than the Malik Neighbors who came back from injury, there's still no sugarcoat. No sugarcoat. Absolutely none.
Yeah, this team doesn't really have heart. They don't have discipline. They don't play Giants football. And you are wasting your time with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Well, you could try to make DeVito start quarterback or your franchise guy, but I think the Giants and Brian Dable, I'm afraid Brian Dable will get scapegoated, but I have a feeling that in order for him to save his job, he's going to have to say that we're not starting Daniel Jones, and that I want to go to the drawing board at quarterback and look at which prospect I want to that I could potentially work with.
See, here's the thing, though. If week 8 does not go well, then you pull the plug on Daniel Jones. And then you bring in Tommy DeVito, who you know can play better than Daniel Jones, your $160 million man. You put him in, and then if the Giants have a top 6, top 7 pick, you start over again. You draft a QB, whether it be Quinn Ewers or whether it be Carson Beck or whether it be,
Arch Manning.
Arch Manning. There's still a whole lot of options at quarterback at the college level that are better than Daniel Jones. And fans know this. It's just like you got to go through the stress right now as a Giants fan, but you got to give Tommy DeVito the ball. You can't give it to Daniel Jones anymore. He has just been so ineffective, so inconsistent, and so unimproving.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what has Daniel Jones done since that 22 Magic? I mean, the Giants have really, gave him that ridiculous bad contract and just didn't even pay Saquon Barkley.
You want to know the answer to what Daniel Jones has done?
Yeah.
0.
He's not a star. He's not Eli Manning. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Tom Brady.
He's none of those guys. He's a far cry from all 3 of those guys put together. It's just like, if you're Daniel Jones, I don't know how the Giants. Well, if you're the Giants, you might as well just eat up the rest of the salary that he has and get rid of him, because it's just been that bad. And if you're also the Giants, I recommend that you put Tommy DeVito and you give Brian Dable 1 more year to get his own guy, because I don't think firing him is going to do anything right now.
Yeah, firing isn't going to do Brian Dable anything. But you also wanted to talk to me about that Bengals-Browns game where the Bengals should have blown the Browns out 56-14, but it was the complete opposite. And then Deshaun Watson hurt again. And you also told me that the Browns fans just booed him.
Yeah, it was a mess. First off, this game was closer than it should have been. The Browns with Jameis Winston and Dorian Thompson-Robinson made it a game. But first off, after Deshaun Watson's calf popped and it was revealed that it was a torn ACL and he was carted off the field. It was torn Achilles. You heard Browns fans booing him after he was being carted off the field. Now, let me just say this. We've had similar discussions about the fans when it came to the Dodgers handling the Padres in that postseason series in the NLDS. This is something completely different from that. They're booing your own player. What are you doing? I mean, first off, I'm not a fan of people getting hurt. I think getting hurt stinks. But at the same time, you guys show at least a little bit of sympathy and a little bit of respect for your players who are putting their bodies on the line for your team in your city. And you're turning on them. Now, listen, part of me kind of understands it because Deshaun Watson has had off-the-field problems since coming to Cleveland. But still, despite the poor play and the past, that doesn't give you any excuse to boo the man who's been trying everything he can. I know he's taking money away from the Browns because he got that $230 million guaranteed contract, but it's just unnecessary. So now, if you're the Browns, you look shameless, and it looks like Jameis Winston is going to be the guy for the rest of the season.
It looks like it. And the Browns are a better football team without Deshaun Watson because they function better offensively without him.
They do, but let me ask you. So, if you were playing for the Los Angeles Dodgers and you got hit in the foot by a pitch, and they cheered you as you were coming off, or they booed you as you were coming off the field, you'd feel disrespected, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's how I would feel if I ripped my knee out of my bone and the Giants fans booed me as I was being carted off. Like, this is just something that really should not be allowed at football games. And the fans of Cleveland have nothing better to do because their Guardians just lost, their Buckeyes lost, so now the Browns are bad. So now you're basically just saying to yourself, you know what? Where you have no patience for anything in Cleveland anymore. But that's not how the approach should be. You need to be calm. You need to be respectful and polite to your athletes, whether they play bad or not. And that's unacceptable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, although the Bengals won, and I'm like, this is basically a turning point in the Bengals season to beat a team that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the Bengals are starting to rack up wins again. They're starting to put themselves in the playoff conversation, which I like. I think Baltimore is way better. I think they're going to win the division anyway. But like I said, if you're Cincinnati, good win. If you're Cleveland, you're stuck looking for answers at this point. You're 1-6.
And then you have to talk about the Denver Broncos coming into New Orleans, beating the Saints 33-10. The New Orleans Saints have been on a 5-game losing streak since their 2-0 start. Is there a time when the Saints are going to be like, hey, we're going to have to dismiss Dennis Allen as our head coach?
Well, when you start 2-0, your offense puts up 45 points to going from losing 5 in a row and barely putting up 20 a game. Yeah, there's a cause for panic if you're Dennis Allen. And I think that Saints ownership is probably going to make a change at some point if things don't lighten up. I mean, Derek Carr is injured, and then you also got a bunch of lack of execution and injuries across the entire Saints roster. It's not looking good for this old team, for this old Yeller team that we thought was going to win the NFC South early in the year. And unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be anything good for the rest of the season.
Oh, yeah, because Derek Carr's still out. Spencer Rattler's trying out for the position, and I think he probably will be their guy going forward.
He probably is going to be the guy going forward, but his mechanics are far from desirable.
And then for the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix, he's become a gem for the Denver Broncos at quarterback, and the Denver Broncos have finally found their QB1 of the future and the present.
Well, my opinion on Bo Nix is that he's not the most amazing QB out there, but he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. The offense tailored around him is fantastic. And I think that if you play mistake-free football, you're going to do well in Denver with Sean Payton as your head coach. And you know what? That's what Bo Nix has done. So he started the season off slow, but he's picked it up.
Well, this was an exciting game to talk about here. The Detroit Lions, after beating up on the Dallas Cowboys by a lot, they eked out a win in Minnesota where the Vikings could have won, but the Detroit Lions survived.
And you know what? This is just a great sign for the Detroit Lions. They knock off their undefeated opponent, and now they're in first place in the NFC North. They look really good. They did not play their best brand of football this game, but you know what? They got to one of the tougher teams in the NFL, and they are now sitting, I think, in a top 2 seed in the NFC. Like, this team is just on a roll right now.
The Detroit Lions are they're finally, I feel like that people in Detroit are finally getting a football team that is back to playing winning football, a team that has not had a Super Bowl title in their history.
Oh, yeah. But this is a team that hasn't won an NFL title since 1957. I think they're absolutely due to come out of the NFC to make it to the Super Bowl. I think whoever they play, if they get out of the NFC, is going to be a challenge. But this is a team that's just so well put together. The offense is good. The defense is consistent. Jared Goff is one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL, and I can't see any other player in the NFL that's playing better at the position than Jared Goff is.
He's not like Ryan Tannehill was in Tennessee.
No, not at all.
Jared Goff is a way different story in Detroit than Ryan Tannehill was in Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, it's night and day. I mean, Tannehill had that one miracle run in 2019, and Jared Goff has had a story for the ages where the Rams give up on him after losing a Super Bowl, and then he goes to Detroit, and he's basically a media darling in Detroit. Fans love him. They're chanting Jared Goff everywhere they go in Michigan.
Oh yeah, they love Jared Goff is their guy in Detroit. And I think not only that he has a supporting cast around him like Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Matt LaPorta, Penny Sewell. I mean, losing Aiden Hutchinson sucks, but I did hear that if the Lions were to make the Super Bowl, he would return.
Yeah, I heard that, but the key is you got to make it to the Super Bowl. And even though the 49ers are not 100%, I wouldn't count them out yet because they're yet to get healthy. But when the Niners get healthy, they're going to be a threat. I think the Eagles are starting to pick things up. You got to look at how good the Commanders are doing, for God's sake. It's just like the NFC is a tough conference. Even though it's not as talented as the AFC, it's still a tough conference. But I hope the Lions make it to the Super Bowl because I want to see Aiden Hutchinson back on the field.
Oh, everybody would. And then I think the biggest threat to the Lions in the NFC North, either the Bears or the Packers, not the Vikings.
The Vikings had a magical 5-game run, and it came crashing down against the Lions at home. And now you're playing the Rams on Thursday Night Football. You're probably going to have a tough time in that game because the Rams have started to find their footing a little bit. So the Vikings are going to be tough. That NFC North is actually a really competitive division.
No, here's my thing in the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy is going to make things challenging in that division.
Yes, I agree. I think that Darnold has made the most of his opportunity. I don't think he's going to get the job done, and I'm not sure if the Vikings can make the playoffs, though.
Well, talk about Sunday Night Football. I mean, talk about a huge disappointment and embarrassment for the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. That's a game they should have won, but the Steelers beat them. What are you going to do? What is Ryan going to do? What is this Jets? Why is this? Where's this Jets team? Why did this Jets team disappear?
Pretty bad. Pretty embarrassing. Especially because this was Davante Adams' New York Jets debut, and he put up a stinker. He had 3 catches for 30 yards. He did almost nothing. And Jets fans are looking at this. Not only did they lose to the Steelers, they got pounded 37-15. They got pounded by Pittsburgh, and they should be absolutely embarrassed. Now Aaron Rodgers is searching for answers, and Jeff Ulbricht's now 0 for 2 as Jets head coach, and Todd Downing's offense has not exactly clicked.
No, it really hasn't. I mean, the New York Jets play the Patriots in Week 8, and I'm like, the Jets, they better hope and pray they better not lose to a team like the New England Patriots because Aaron Rodgers beat them in Week 3 at the Meadowlands. But what if the Patriots come in at home and beat the New York Jets? That would be a bad look on Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson and the Jets too.
If the Jets lose to the Patriots on Sunday, all hell will break loose in New York because Aaron Rodgers was the highly acclaimed talent that the Jets wanted to acquire, and they gave a pass last year because he tore his Achilles after 4 snaps. This year's his first real chance to start. You got Davante Adams, you got Alan Lazard, you got your offensive coordinator, you had your head coach, you have Mike Williams on your team. Breece Hall is great, and you're 2-5. And it's a head scratcher. It really is. Like, if you're the Jets and you lose this game, bad.
That's a bad look for the New York Jets. We got to talk about that game pick in a little bit, but the Buccaneers made it interesting on Monday night, but the Ravens just survived. But I'll tell you, Baltimore Ravens, since that 0-2 start, they have really played great football.
They have picked things up, and I think they started to realize that the ground game is their biggest weapon that they have. Derrick Henry has been amazing. since the 0-2 start, and I think that Baltimore has now started to realize that they run the football better than any other team in the NFL. And unfortunately for the Buccaneers, they lost the game and they lost their top 2 receivers. Chris Godwin's out for the year, and Mike Evans is probably going to miss some time due to a hamstring injury. So the Bucs are not in a good position right now, especially because they got to play the Falcons next week in what could be a game that could decide the NFC North, the NFC South early. So if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, they were recuperating from Hurricane Milton, but they got a disaster on their own hands right now.
Talk about a low-scoring game between the Chargers and Cardinals. I mean, the Chargers kept it a competitive football game. But you know what? This is something you said about the Arizona Cardinals. They were 2-4, but you know what? They're very streaky, and you know they compete every game.
Well, the Chargers, their biggest problem was they could not find the end zone at all yesterday. And I expected Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers to come out full guns blazing against this porous Cardinal defense. But that exactly did not happen. Kyler Murray had everything he wanted. Like, he basically took what the defense gave him and ran with it. Murray was incredible. James Conner had a field day. And even though Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't go off, the Cardinal defense held their own and made sure that their offense made sure 17 points was enough. So if you're the Cardinals, good win, but now you got to follow it up with another one.
Oh, yeah, the Cardinals don't have a game this week, but now on to our Week 8 picks. So, Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings undefeated no more, coming into Los Angeles to play the LA Rams on Thursday Night Football. I'm picking the Rams in this game. I think Matthew Stafford is probably going to get Cooper Kupp back. Boom, Nakua's close to coming back. So you know what? Everybody has doubted the Rams early in the season, but the Rams are going to come back.
If Cooper Kupp comes back for Thursday night for Week 8, I think the Rams win. I think even if Cooper Kupp does not come back, I think that the Rams still win.
Well, yeah, because the Rams still have Higbee, they got Kyrie Williams. It's been a little bit of a rebuilding year for the Rams since Aaron Donald retired.
Yeah, they're trying to reconstruct that defense to make it work, and it hasn't really been an immaculate rebuild by any means, but they're hanging in there.
Well, and then you talk about the Green Bay Packers visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. Oh, man. I think Doug Peterson has played against the Green Bay. He's a former Green Bay Packer backup quarterback. I'm picking the Jaguars to win this game because I really think they need to go 3-5. I think he has had enough with the media about his job security being fired. And Doug Peterson is a good coach, as you know. The Jags have a rough schedule, but you're going to need to get some wins here.
Jaguars get this win by a field goal.
Well, the Cardinals go to Miami, and you know what? My is back.
Yay!
I'm happy about it. The Dolphins season is going to get jump-started.
And you know what? No one wants this more than Tyreek Hill and Mike McDaniel. Those two guys want this offense to get going because watching Tyler Huntley has been brutal. Watching Tim Boyle has been brutal. Watching Skylar Thompson has been brutal. So now Dolphin fans get to watch some competitive football again.
And it's Tua Tagovailoa. Give me the Miami Dolphins. But it won't be easy because Jonathan Gannon always puts up competitive ball games against every team.
I am going to say this, though. The Cardinals have not won back-to-back games since 2021. I think they are going to fall short again and lose. So I'm going to say the Miami Dolphins win in Tua's return.
The New England Patriots, we haven't had a win since Week 8. They're taking on a Jets team that just came off an embarrassing loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Give me the Patriots by a Joe Slot field goal. I say that just because I don't like the Jets. I mean, the Jets are just an embarrassment. They were just all hype, but no results.
Jets need to win this one, or else, like I said, all hell will break loose.
Are you thinking Gotham City is gonna explode?
Oh, yeah. It'll be as bad as the Eagles celebrating the Super Bowl win.
Well, the Baltimore Ravens go to Cleveland. I mean, there's not much to talk about this game just because
Ravens.
the Baltimore. You know how Ben Roethlisberger owned the Cleveland Browns in his career? Lamar Jackson is probably the Cleveland Browns' son.
Oh, yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
The Browns, I'll tell you, they have a great defense up front with Myles Garrett, but I feel like the Ravens' offensive line will be too much for them.
Yeah, the Ravens' offensive line that loves to run block more than any other offensive line in football is going to give Derrick Henry wide open lanes. And I feel like this is going to be a track meet for Browns DBs. I think this is going to be a blowout for the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles are taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, these are two teams that who really wants this more? I mean, the Bengals are starting to pick things up. The Eagles basically jumped their season with a big win over the New York Giants. Give me my guy, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Adams, Saquon Barkley, Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to go 5-2. Bengals go 3-5.
These are two teams that really want this win so badly. I think the Eagles need it to catch up with the Commanders or keep pace with the Commanders. And then the Bengals need to keep themselves afloat in the AFC playoff hunt. I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one. I think the Bengals are a really good offense. I think despite the Eagles being the Giants, it's the Giants. It's not much to say.
Well, talk about the Eagles and what's better for them this year is their defense. Vic Fangio has done wonders for turning around that defense that was so bad down the stretch. And that the Eagles defense is aggressive. They attack. They get to the quarterback. They stop the run. They match up well the number one receivers. That's the Vic Fangio defense I like.
I mean, it's improved in recent weeks, so that's a good sign. But again, they haven't allowed an offensive touchdown in the last 2 weeks, I believe. So this is a good thing for the Philadelphia Eagles catching up defensively. I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals are going to be a little bit of a challenge, though.
Well, the Indianapolis Colts, they're a pesky team with Richardson or Flacco, Shane Steichen, Hurts, in Anthony Richardson. And then you talk about C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans that have just been blowing out the waters. There's probably no competition in the AFC South. The Colts will probably be the bigger threat to the Texans, but I think Houston gets in Indy at home.
I think the Texans wallop over the Colts.
Look, last week they were stunned. They lost to the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I think that's a fluke. I think that you're going to have losses like that every now and then if you're a football team, but I think that if you're the Texans, I think you rebound quickly this game.
Yes, because they had a fluke against the Green Bay Packers. I mean, that they gave that game away to the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But the Houston Texans, they're going to come in. The Colts will give them the challenge just because Anthony Richardson's going to throw the ball downfield. We'll see if he has Jonathan Taylor by then.
Oh, yeah, that's a big piece that they're hoping to get back.
Yes, because when he's healthy, the Colts are they're pesky team.
Exactly. That's why they need to get all hands on deck.
They're very sneaky.
Yeah.
And the Jags, I think they're good too, but they've just taken a very rough schedule.
Oh yeah, pretty rough.
Well, this is the game that decides the NFC South between the Falcons and Bucks. Baker Mayfield has had another good year, I'll tell you that. I mean, the Bucks have other pieces that could step up in the absences of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but I'm going to pick the Atlanta Falcons to win this game.
I don't know the Falcons, and I think it's because their offense is more equipped than the Bucks right now. The Bucks are not going to have their top two receivers for the rest of the season, probably. So I go with the Falcons running away with this one.
Well, we got two 105 games that may not need our attention. I mean, the Chargers are playing the Saints. This is the Saints. I mean, you lost to the Arizona Cardinals, and now you're playing the Saints. That's going to be I assume. Give me the Chargers blowout over the Saints.
Blowout City.
That would be Dennis Allen's last game.
It probably could be the last straw.
And then the Buffalo Bills go to Seattle. The Seahawks started out 3-0 to start the year. They've fallen off a cliff since then. So I'm going to the Buffalo Bills to win this game in Lumen Field. It's going to be hard, but you know what? Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills can take out the 12th man.
I'm going to go with the Bills as well. I think that they're a better team. And also, if the Seahawks don't have DK Metcalf, it's going to be really hard for them to keep up with the Bills' offense.
Oh, absolutely. Like you got Njigba and Lockett, but that's not enough.
No, it's not.
Or Kenneth Walker.
No.
Well, I have a feeling here. My prediction is that Daniel does play Sunday against the Bears. What's your call?
The battle of the rookie QBs.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels had a rib injury against the Panthers. Didn't play the rest of the game because Marcus Mariota just found a way to torch that defense and just put up numbers.
All right, I'm going to say Caleb Williams puts up numbers. If Jaden Daniels does not play, it's going to be a blowout in favor of the Bears. If Jaden Daniels does play, it's going to be a close one where the Commanders win. But I think I'm going to go with the Bears.
Here's my perspective. I think Jaden Daniels plays on Sunday. I don't really think that rib injury was that bad to begin with because his mom tweeted that he's fine.
Love it.
So that's why I'm saying both teams are going to battle it out. I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears because I think Caleb Williams, this is his homecoming. He's from Washington, D.C. He's going to want to play well in front of his home fans.
So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams.
I think Jaden Daniels plays. I mean, whether he plays or not, Bears win, but but the thing about Mariota is he did a good job on Jaden Daniels' absence.
Yeah, but you're playing the Panthers.
Yeah, the Panthers. It's the Panthers. Like, what do you expect?
Exactly. So you really can't say anything positive about Mariota's in relief performance because it was against a terrible team.
Well, we'll get to that game against the Denver Broncos in a little bit. Antonio Pierce has had this team on his calendar for a very, very long time because last Raiders came into Arrowhead and they beat the Chiefs on Christmas Day. And now he's looking forward to facing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Even though the Raiders don't have a great roster, this is a team that Antonio Pierce wants to beat in the AFC West. I'm going to say the Chiefs are due for a loss. Give me the Raiders in an upset victory.
I'm going to say the Chiefs, but I think it's going to be closer than many people think.
Look, I know the Raiders are bad, but the reason why I say that the Raiders win is because, look, it's not because they have Gardner Minshew. They have a depleted receiving core. The guy that I think is going to get the Raiders offense going is Brock Bowers.
And Brock Bowers has had an amazing rookie campaign for a tight end. But I think Max Crosby has to intimidate Patrick Mahomes in order for the Chiefs to be stymied. But I think that Mahomes' stats have not been amazing this season. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns so far this year, and the Chiefs are 6-0. I mean, that's just a testament how good Steve Spagnuolo's defense is in Kansas City. Having said that, again, I think the Chiefs eke it out, but it's only because of their defense. Their offense is not that special.
You kind of know why I was picking the Raiders to win this game. It was because it's not because of one player in the Raiders, it's because of Antonio Pierce. Because
of course,
this is a team that he wants to knock out.
And I appreciate the determination, but I don't think it's going to happen. I would love to see it happen, but I don't think it's going to.
I'll tell you, Antonio Pierce is the man in Vegas. But here's what I would like for the Raiders to change next season. Fire Luke Getsy. This is not a good offense that he's running down.
No, it's not.
Because I feel like Antonio Pierce just needs to pull the plug on Luke Getsy just because I would want to hire an offensive coordinator that would help the Raiders' offense flow.
No, 100%. I think the Raiders' offensive cohesiveness is not great. No, there's no cohesiveness. There's nothing going on that's special about this Raiders offense. There's no such
It's
thing
not
as
special by any means but you know why I think the Raiders can be good and they always stay in games? It's because
yeah.
Antonio Pierce makes he doesn't even the Raiders don't get blown out on purpose.
And like I said, I appreciate the grit. I really do.
And you're not saying Antonio Pierce is a bad head coach.
He's not a bad coach. I think he's a good head coach with a bad roster.
Oh yeah, because he gets them to play. He gets them motivated.
Uh-huh.
And he's very energetic too.
Absolutely.
Well, the Carolina Panthers are playing the Denver Broncos. You know, if you look at the Denver Broncos being 4-3, they're gonna go 5-3 pretty easily because Bo Nix, man, he's gonna be throwing that football all over that Carolina defense, getting the ball to Cortland Sutton, Javonte Williams running the football. That Pat Surtain is gonna get another pick six.
Hey, Carolina Panther fans, remember that time where you thought Andy Dalton was good and then you had a chance to win? Yeah, that lasted one game. He's been bad ever since.
Oh yeah. Is that why you're saying Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos get this victory?
Yep.
Well, Sunday Night Football, the Cowboys are back from their bye week. And we talked about the Dallas Cowboys going to go on a long losing streak because their schedule is tough. And I'm like, the only team that they could have an easier time with is the Atlanta Falcons. But having said that, San Francisco is going to get this victory because they lost to Kansas City pretty bad. Brandon Ayuk is going to be out for the year. Nothing has really gone their way this year.
This is a team that has been hit with the injury bug pretty bad. And now Debo Samuel has pneumonia. His return is to be determined. They don't have a timetable for Debo Samuel's return. So no Ayuk, possibly no Debo Samuel. You're going to have to rely on Juwan Jennings to get the job done for you at receiver. And Ricky Pearsall, who, by the way, made his debut after getting shot in the chest. Welcome to the NFL. Jordan Mason's been up and down. I think that the Niners are going to have a tough time in this one. I think the Cowboys get the win. I hate to say it, but I think the Cowboys get the win.
I still pick San Francisco. Brock Purdy, I still think he can get things done, but this is the Niners. They have a really stacked roster. I still think the Niners can still win the division, but it's not going to be easy.
It's not. I think they've gotten off to a really slow start. And like I said, no McCaffrey, no Samuel, no Ayuk. It's going to be hard because when your key players are gone, your offense is not going to flow as well as it usually does.
Oh, yeah, you're right about that. But I feel like the Niners will just really get this one. But, you know, I still think the Niners are a good football team.
They are. But it's like 2020 where they got hit with the injury bug on every single position.
No one wants to see that. I don't want to see that with a team like the Niners.
No, it's so unfortunate because you figured that they were going to reach back. They were going to get back to the Super Bowl and maybe have a chance at Kansas City again. But now the damper has been put on them because of all these injuries.
Oh, boy, the New York Giants are on prime time again. I'm like, who wants to see the Giants in prime time? Because I'm like, if I were a schedule maker next year, I am not scheduling a New York Giant game in prime time. Again, until they get good.
Can we flex this game out?
No, because there's a rule that Monday night games can't be flexed until week 12.
Oh my God.
They're playing the Steelers.
Oh my God.
They don't deserve to be on a Monday night game. They don't deserve to be on a Sunday night game. Thursday night, I can get it. Thursday night games, that's kind of like not the biggest primetime show.
I don't even know if I'm going to watch this game.
It's the same day the Yankees and Dodgers play in Game 3. I'm not watching this game either.
No, I'm not watching this game. I'm not watching this game.
Yeah, we want to focus on Game 3 on Monday.
Absolutely. I'd rather World Series Game 3 is better than Monday Night Football featuring the Giants.
I'm going to say the Steelers get this victory. But you know what? I feel like it's a mistake that Justin Fields is not starting. He should stay as the starter and not start Russell Wilson.
I mean, Russell Wilson had a good game against the New York Jets in his first start with Pittsburgh. I feel like things just started off slow, but Russell Wilson picked things up like that. So I think that's a positive thing. But I do agree with you on one thing. Justin Fields was winning you football games pretty handily. So I don't understand why you make the change, but it worked for now. But I think long term, it's not going to go well for Pittsburgh.
It's not, but I also thought Russell Wilson was going to rejuvenate himself again.
Yeah, maybe he will, but again, like I don't see Pittsburgh making the playoffs this year. Maybe they will because Mike Tomlin's just a phenomenal coach. But I'm gonna make this really brief. I got the Steelers winning this game hands down.
Well, next week we got some pretty good games to talk about here. You start off with the Jets and the Texans. That's probably not a game to talk about just because the Houston Texans are probably going to come into the Meadowlands and to beat Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Because DeMeco Ryans is just a heck of a coach.
He is. He really is. And the Jets have gone way down south.
And then the Patriots play the Titans. That's a battle of one-win teams. One of these teams is going to get 2 wins.
I
would watch. But I'm just I'm hoping I don't get a game where it's just 6-3 where I would fall asleep.
Yeah, those games stink.
It's those games are just a waste of time.
Big time.
And then you talk about the Commanders and Giants play again. And Jaden Daniels is probably going to come into the Meadowlands and did what he could have done in week 2 against the Giants.
I'll try to watch it, but it depends on how I feel.
And then another game that should be intriguing, Lions-Packers, America's game of the week.
Interesting.
That's in Lambeau Field. And then Sunday Night Football, Colts-Vikings, and then the Chiefs and the Buccaneers play again on Monday Night Football.
All right, we got a couple good ones.
So that's the week 9 slate. But now we have NBA. The NBA is back. First, starting with the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics, followed by the Lakers and the T-Wolves. We talked about this yesterday. That the Lakers are probably going to be playing based on what you told me. You told me don't expect much from the Los Angeles Lakers.
I mean, it's kind of the same story every year for the last couple of years since they won in the bubble. Anthony Davis needs to prove that he can stay healthy. But other than that, LeBron James, Bronny's going to be making his debut at some point this season. JJ Redick's coaching this team for the first time in his career. There's a lot of veterans on this team, a lot of optimism surrounding this team. But the problem with the Lakers right now is that the Western Conference is very, very, very stacked.
And we also got news that Deebo Samuel's just been released from the hospital.
Oh, nice. That's good to hear.
So hopefully that get him back pretty soon.
Yeah.
So, and then for the T-Wolves, we were like, when they traded Karl Anthony Towns, I was like, are the T-Wolves tanking or are they not tanking?
I mean, I think they got a pretty decent team regardless. I know Karl Anthony Towns is gone, but you got to look at what they got. They got Dante DiVincenzo, who's a good three-point shooter. They got one of the best young studs in the NBA in Anthony Edwards. They got Rudy Gobert, who's good inside defensively. And then Julius Randle, I think, found a new home that I think he's going to thrive in. But I like this Minnesota Timberwolves team. I think that they're going to be okay, but I think Karl Anthony Towns has had a significant impact on the Timberwolves franchise. But I think Anthony Edwards is going to carry them as far as he can go.
Absolutely. This is Anthony Edwards' team now. for the Minnesota Timberwolves because that guy can slam dunk, shoot threes, play great defense on the outside. The T-Wolves are in good hands still.
Oh, he's an unbelievable player for a guy his size. You wouldn't think that a guy could dunk, shoot, play D the way he does, and he's a triple threat. It's kind of insane. It's almost like a smaller version of Victor Wembanyama. It really is.
And then the Celtics playing the Knicks. What I can't wait to see tonight is Karl-Anthony Towns' New York debut. Celtics get their rings. The Celtics, I think, are looking to run it back to the championship. The New York Knicks are probably the Celtics' threat in the East.
It's looking like it because the Knicks were the 2 seed last year. Now, obviously, they got shocked by the Pacers in the conference semis, but I think that the Knicks have a lot more talent this year than they did last year. Yes, you don't have the core 4 with the New York Villanova Knicks, but I think Karl-Anthony Towns is really good on shooting and playing defense. I think that Jalen Brunson is going to have an MVP caliber season, and I'm pretty sure Tom Thibodeau is going to make sure that this team is locked in every single game.
He's a good coach. He really makes sure every team gets locked into play, and I really think that New York Knicks are going to. The Knicks are going to be a great team this year, and
they really should be.
I think they're back to being the New York. I feel like the New York Knicks are back to being New York's ultimate basketball team, because when the Nets moved to Brooklyn, Brooklyn came as not. The Brooklyn Nets are kind of the second tier.
Brooklyn Nets are the F tier at this point. They're going to be so bad that the Barclays Center has shot their load with attendance after the WNBA championship, which, by the way, while we're on the subject of basketball, congratulations to the New York Liberty for winning the WNBA championship. It's their first title in their 28-year history.
You know what? They're good for a long time. And the WNBA is starting to rise up, even though they opted out of the collective bargaining agreement to the WNBA finals.
Yeah.
I still think they're going to – it's not like they're going to have a lockout or anything. I still think that they're going to have plenty of time to get a new agreement in.
Yeah, I think the WNBA is in really good hands. And I think the reason why there was an opt-out for this CBA is because they saw attendance figures and profits rise significantly this year. And part of it is because of Caitlin Clark. But I think that the WNBA is going to manage this so well. They're going to have 2 new teams this year. And I think that everything's going to be fine in the WNBA. I think that they're in good hands.
Saying, I saw on the ESPN thing, it said that it could be a potential lockout. And I'm like, we're going to see a lockout again, just like what we finished seeing a lockout from baseball.
Yeah, why do we need a lockout? Like, the last thing the WNBA needs is a lockout, because you hit the peak of your popularity, and the last thing you want to do is lose fans because of a lockout.
So what do you think happens next now that they opted out of the contract? Are they going to just – do you think that now that they have a year to negotiate, you really think that both parties are going to come together and hammer this thing out?
Oh, they're going to come together. I think that the commissioner of the WNBA is going to make sure that the players, owners, and coaches all come together to find common ground and make sure that they get a plan that can fit everybody's needs.
I also talked about this yesterday. I feel like Major League Baseball is in a different place than it was after the lockout itself.
Well, I think that even though Rob Manfred said that he's going to be gone in 2029, I feel like Major League Baseball has also seen a rise in popularity this year. And I think the Yankees and Dodgers capping off the season, I think, is the cherry on top. I think that this is exactly what Major League Baseball needed. And I think that Rob Manfred's sulking in the fact that he's making a lot of money over the next week or so.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like that Major League Baseball and players are in a different place since the lockout.
Yep.
Like, we're not hearing any tensions between the two sides.
Yeah, very quiet. We haven't heard anything at all that's toxic at all amongst Major League Baseball.
Well, which is back to the Brooklyn Nets here. Tomorrow, they begin their season against the Atlanta Hawks. And the Atlanta Hawks still have Trae Young. They're still a decent playing team. But I don't really expect much because I'm looking at their first 3 games of the season. They play Atlanta, then they have to play Orlando. The first home game on Sunday, the 27th, against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh boy.
So they got a tough schedule to start. The games I see the Brooklyn Nets winning is the Detroit Pistons, if they're lucky.
Yeah. If they're lucky, they can beat the Pistons. This Pistons team was the worst team in the NBA by a country mile last year, and they did fire Monty Williams because of their futility. But I think if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you gotta at least beat the Pistons. If you can't beat the Pistons, you're really, really, really looking like the worst team in the NBA.
Well, Andy Dalton was just in a car accident. His wife, kids, and dog were all in the car, but everybody was okay. Gosh.
Okay, you scared me for a second.
Because Andy Dalton had a car accident, but on to college football, we have some very good games to talk about here. I mean, talk about why is Alabama even struggling?
I think it's because of the new landscape of coaching. I think that Kalen DeBoer, I know you like the guy, but he has not really gotten his offense off the ground. I feel like the Tennessee game, Alabama was struggling to score on, and they had many opportunities to. So I think Bama had 2 losses. Their chance of making the playoffs are kind of on life support right now. I'm not really confident they can do it. I also want to give a shout out to a really, really good team that's kind of surprised me, and you could probably agree with me on this. The Indiana Hoosiers football team is 7-0 right now with a rookie head coach. They score 40 points a game on average, and they're tied for first place in the Big Ten with Oregon and Penn State.
Michigan should be still up there too.
Michigan's had a tough going. They really have. They lost to Illinois recently. They had that big loss to Texas. They have lost a couple games that should have gone their way, and now I think their chances are probably diminished as well. But I think the most amazing thing about college football this year, the teams that we didn't expect to be great are great. And I think the 12-team playoff is just immaculate.
And then USC choked against Maryland. I felt like that's a loss they shouldn't have had.
Yeah, USC fell down the tubes after losing to Penn State. They really did.
And then talk about games this week. USC and Rutgers. They should beat Rutgers.
They should. They really should.
And then you talk about Oregon and Illinois. I mean, Oregon is really good right now.
Oregon is the most dominant team in college football this year, and I think they're taking advantage of the fact that of the realignment moving to the Big Ten. I mean, this is a team that probably would have easily won the Pac-12 anyway, but they're taking it to the Big Ten, which is not an easy conference. I think the main thing that I'm really wondering is if you're Oregon and you're Penn State and you're Indiana, if all 3 of those teams are undefeated at the end of the year, how do you decide the Big Ten championship game? Because the problem with the realignment is the Big Ten has no divisions. So that's the big issue.
They should go back to divisions because the Big Ten West should be UCLA, Oregon, and USC and Nebraska.
Yeah, I think, especially now that your conference is 18 teams, you need to have divisions to decide a conference championship game because having 3 unbeatens at the end of the year and putting 2 in the championship is unfair.
Yeah, and then talk about this week. Michigan State. I think Michigan can get the win.
They need it.
And then try to see Alabama playing Missouri. I think they win.
They need a bounce back in the worst way. They need it.
And then Nebraska playing number 4, The Ohio State University.
Blowout.
That's a win for Ryan Day's team.
Yep.
And then Navy and Notre Dame. I mean, Navy's been a great story.
Navy's been a phenomenal story. They're ranked in the AP 25 for the first time in years. And I think that one of the things that Notre Dame has to worry about is if they lose this game, their chances are dashed as well.
Anyways, Matt, that's going to do it here. Looking forward to the World Series, and we'll have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.